Hi, this is Ken Mergentime with Sign and Digital Graphics magazine, and we're here early in the morning, just before the show, at the NBM Show in Arlington, Texas, and I'm here with some guests. We're going to be talking about shop safety and anything else that kind of comes up in this discussion. Over here we have Darrel Wilkerson with Wilkie Manufacturing, the Vice President of Operations. To his left is Brian Phipps, the General Manager of Mutoh America. And over here we have John Harris, the Director of Sales and Marketing for Multicam CNC Cutting Solutions. And in the green here is Rodney Williams, the Vice President of Marketing for GSG Distributing. I think I'd like to start with Darrel, who had some points he wanted to make about OSHA and lift truck safety.
One of the things OSHA in 2010 came out with new safety regulations regarding cranes as well as crane operators. Sort of a twofold thing. The crane portion of it kicked in immediately back in November 2010. The crane operator certification, it kicks in on November of 2014. The crane portion of it includes any crane over any crane out used in the sign industry. The crane operator certification is for cranes that are over 2,000 pounds. You have to have a certified crane operator to run them, no matter what the height that you're working at. If that crane's got a lift capacity of over 2,000 pounds, your operator has to be certified through the OSHA certified process. That's typically a 3 or 4 day process. Educational, then testing. You just don't send a rookie to get out, get certified. They need some experience before they go. It's coming. If you're not ready for it, now's the time to be prepared. 2014 will probably be a very busy time. People trying to get their operator certified. And it's not just the sign industry. It's anybody that uses any type of crane, whether it's construction, heating and air conditioning, electrical contractors, all cranes over 2,000 pounds are going to have a certified operator.
So Darrel, how does somebody get their operator recertified or certified for this?
There's several different schools around the industry, around the country, that offer crane operator certification. I think here in Texas there's probably at least a dozen different companies that work on certification. A lot of different sign associations have schools set up. I know here in Texas, the Texas Sign Association has about a dozen different schools this year just for people in the sign industry to get certified. Texas is a 3-day process, 2 days of class, and then a full day of actual written test as well as practical test.
And are there consequences if your operator isn't certified?
Come November 2014, if OSHA pulls up on a job site and your operator is running a crane that's rated over 2,000 pounds, they will shut you down.
They'll shut you down.
Yep.
So this is very important to make sure that you're all squared away.
It's not a cheap process either. Typically the school is about $1,000 per operator, but the owner of the company is paying his wages while he goes through the certification process. So you're going to end up, we kind of crunch some numbers between lost production time and wages and benefits, as well as the school. Somewhere about $5,000 to $10,000 an operator is what the actual cost is going to be.
Wow.
And the challenge right now is that the certification follows the operator.
Yes.
So there's nothing to protect the owner. Once they pay for certification of that operator, he can leave and take that certification to another shop.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that license is portable.
Right.
So that's caused a lot of pushback in the early stages. There's nothing to protect the employer on that.
But on the other hand, he's free to hire a crane operator, and the guy might already be certified. And he's
sure. Well, what it potentially is going to cause is somewhat of a bidding war for employees because you go and offer them a little bit more hourly wage,
right?
Because you're not having to pay for the certification that somebody else already invested in. And there's a lot of companies, even though the regulation doesn't start yet, there's a lot of the bigger national retailers and so forth, they're already saying that they don't want you on site if you don't have the certification. So they're sort of starting to request that now just to protect themselves.
So is the onus for certification on the shop then?
Oh yeah.
It is. But then the operator can go ahead and take it with him.
Yeah.
That seems a little awkward. John, with your CNC machinery, there's some strict regulations there as well, aren't there?
Yeah, our machines are required to, there's a lot of safety things that just come standard on a piece of CNC machinery that we have to keep track of.
Sure.
Labeling and dust collection and all kinds of things that we have to keep track of. But just got a call from our distributor at the beginning of the year, and of course there's this whole level of state regulations as well. About half the states add on to the OSHA regulations. He just calls me up and says, "Hey, we've got a new rule that says you can't have anything over 84 dB in the factory, 84 decibels." And some of our pumps run over 84 dB, and we're concerned about that. And so I'm hearing, this is kind of, we hear through the phone, that these new regulations are in place. So we're starting to research it and get involved in that. And,
so they use the OSHA as a base, and then the states can add on to that.
States can add on to that. It's my understanding about half the states in the United States have. I know they have. Yeah, they have different. It's very tough for us as manufacturers to keep up with all that stuff. Of course, there's differing levels of enforcement throughout the United States.
Do your operators need to become certified at CNC tables?
No, there is no per se, but they certainly need to be trained, and they certainly, that could easily be coming. I could see that possibly coming.
Could you tell us a little bit about the training that is required to operate your machines, and maybe training programs that you guys offer?
Well, with every machine, we have a 3-day training program, and of course, part of that whole program is just setting up the machine. And we usually spend about a half a day with an operator, or typically we'd like to have 2 or 3 operators. And we just go over the machine basics, everything from turning the machine on to homing the machine to just the general running of the machine itself. From a safety standpoint, we go over a lot of things like, for instance, when you change tools on a machine, you can't just pause a machine. You have to go out and you actually have to turn it off.
Right.
You either need to hit the e-stop, or you need to go shut her down, because you need to remove power from all the servos, all the moving parts of the machine before you go in there and service the machine, that type of thing. You got to be careful changing tools.
Sure.
I mean, there's only a certain point. We can provide all these barriers and all this stuff, but you can't prevent an operator from going in, especially on a signing graphics machine. A lot of times you're changing out a tool, and you got a couple of knives sitting right next to it. And if the guy's just not aware of whatever he's doing, I mean, he can get in there and cut himself. And so you got to
be very careful.
There's a point. You got to be careful. You just have to have common sense. You have to have. So it's really, training is very important on all these. You just can't throw a guy into a CNC machine.
No way.
And expect, he can run it. You can go out there in 5 minutes and say, okay, push this button here and do this, and if something else, call me.
Right. Not going to work that way.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
At a certain point, OSHA has it's like the ANSI B211 section of the OSHA regulations says that at a point, it is the purchaser's responsibility to take over safety. And provide barriers, awareness barriers, things like safety mats, light curtains, things like that. These are options that we sell that may or may not be needed depending on a person's application.
Sure.
It's one thing if you buy a real simple machine and you're just doing some simple cutting, but if you have a very sophisticated machine, you have a real crowded shop, you may need some of these other things, and it's the employer's responsibility. It's our responsibility to make sure that they understand that those things are available.
Sure. So Brian, I'm curious, what sort of issues do you run into that safety-wise with your printers, and what shops need to know?
Well, thanks for having me today and us here today to talk about this important topic, Ken. Safety is a big deal in the work environment, obviously. I know us and a lot of our printer manufacturers out there think safety is a big concern, and we've made all of the tools, if you open the door and things stop operating and all of those things. UV lamps are covered in a certain way that you can't just see directly into them. All of those things are important features for people using the equipment day to day, whether they're new to the business or they're a veteran. Some of the things we get questions on when we're doing trainings or from a news shop is about things like ink, what to do with the ink waste. That's a pretty big deal because there's such a variety of inks, as we all know, are out there, and we've kind of been migrating from heavy solvents and real hazardous materials over the past many years to a lighter solvent and water-based type products, and that's helping the industry, I think, as a whole. What I would recommend and what we do recommend in our trainings and when we talk to new shop owners and stuff is to check with your local municipalities, your local the counties and those kind of things on how to dispose of certain types of waste. For a lot of our inks now have gone to such a light solvent that they're still safe for aquatic life, and could be disposed of just about any way. But that doesn't mean that a certain county in a certain state wouldn't prohibit that. So there are agencies and companies that will come out and pick up your waste, and that will educate you. So we usually refer them to either the local municipality or to a company that can come in and say, hey, here's all the things you need to know about hazardous waste that you're producing in your company. And I think people that have been doing this a while understand all that and know it, but people just getting into the sign business or a sign shop or print shop, these are important things that they need to think about.
I can imagine any shop that's just getting started, this whole thing would be a real eye-opener.
Yeah, you don't think about all the regulations and things that can get you fined.
Right. And Rodney, what about you? You sell all kinds of equipment to people. I'm sure you run into these sorts of issues as well.
We do. There's a number of them, and as you stated, there's most of the manufacturers have a lot of the safety controls built in. I think in general, most businesses over the last couple of years are probably, including us, have had to put an increased awareness into safety, having formalized safety programs, and we've got a safety director now that we have regular safety meetings and we communicate that amongst our employees, and we're seeing a lot more of that from the customers. And really, a lot of times having the regular safety meetings and having a safety log will prevent a lot of problems, and also prevent you, if you do get a visit from OSHA, they know that you've got a program in place. And I want to say that Darrel mentioned briefly the sign associations for the crane safety training. That's one of the very underutilized resources of a lot of the local associations, because they have regular safety meetings formats that they can provide to companies that are a member of the associations, as well as the crane safety programs. They also have boards that spend a lot of time monitoring OSHA and government regulation, and they can filter that stuff down to the shop owners, because as John stated, it's hard to get that information if you're on your own out there trying to do it alone. So the associations are a great resource to funnel down what's coming as far as regulations, safety requirements, and helping small shops facilitate that type of training.
I guess that's something that you guys, when you sell a piece of equipment, might encourage these shops to get involved and say, here's a great resource for you, because these laws are changing. Like you were just saying, this just happened, and so it's like a moving target of regulations that you need to be aware of.
In crane safety, it's one of those things. Our industry as a whole is a lot of times not the intended focus of a regulation. It may be focused completely on another industry, another segment, and because government regulation sometimes is so broad and so sweeping, we get swept under a regulation for a completely different reason that affects our industry.
Right.
So
it wasn't really written directly for you.
Well, in this case, it probably was in the crane safety application, at least part of it. But there's a lot of cranes for construction and utility companies and so forth that are using cranes outside of the sign industry.
Sure.
The biggest thing that brought about the crane regulations was the big tower cranes, like the ones in New York City that collapsed, one down Miami.
Oh,
that really brought that into focus.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Oh, that probably triggered the whole thing, huh?
It did. It really pushed that through. You were talking about solvents and paints. There's something most people don't realize. OSHA's revamped its hazardous communication requirements. The old material safety data sheets are going to go away. Be replaced with a new safety data sheet. They're going to a global harmonization for global shipping.
Oh, really?
It's going to be standard.
That sounds like an article I need to write.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all we have time for today. This is Ken Mergentime with Sign and Digital Graphics, and I hope you enjoyed this delightful conversation. I hope to see you again soon.